Welcome to another exciting Paranormal Highway interview with NonnaBoss. This is very exciting for me because, to be honest with you all, when you hear Bigfoot encounter stories, most of the time they're from men. Let's just be honest. Most of the time they're from men and all that, and I don't know. I don't know the reason why. Is it because maybe more men are out there investigating, or maybe a lot of women? There's a lot of women investigate just as much as men. So let's get that part straight. But maybe when women have encounters, they don't tell the story more often, or they keep it in, or is it that society looks at a man and he comes out and tells a Bigfoot story. You kind of look at them like, that guy's crazy, that guy's nuts. But people treat women a little differently than men, right or wrong. That's just a fact. So when I hear a story in an encounter, when a woman comes out, I think it's awesome. It's something that should be supported and should be like, everybody should clap and thank heaven, because it's hard for people to even come out with stories, especially with a story about UFOs, Bigfoot, or any sort of that thing. For anybody to come out to tell a story, you're ready to hit that backlash. The people who don't believe, and that's fine. If you don't want to believe it, that's fine. You don't have to believe these stories, right? But I always tell people, you might want to listen to some of these stories, because what if? And her story proves one thing too. Not only men get encounters, women get encounters just as much as men, and affects them almost the same as men. You just don't hear about it a lot. So I am so proud to be able to have NonnaBoss comes up, and she's gonna tell us her story. So I'm gonna bring her up, and if this is your first time, people coming to this channel, what I do is I let the person tell her story uninterrupted, so the person can tell the story exactly what they want it, and then when she's done, I come in and ask questions based on that story. This is the way we get a raw story, and the person who's doing the interview not trying to narrate the person to go one way. This is purely raw. This is going to be awesome. So, NonnaBoss, I'm going to let you tell us your encounter story.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate you having me on. Well, my story, I had a daytime sighting in Big Cypress Swamp, and we were just out on a hike with the whole family that day, and we were heading down a trail, and in Florida, it's so dense and thick, and you can't see sometimes a few feet off the trail is all about you're going to see. And we were going down the trail that day, and I happened to look over, and I saw it was kind of like an open area. And I thought, oh, that's strange. It's a really open area, and they're not usually that close to the trail. So I thought, I'm going to go investigate. So I went off trail, went to take a look at this area, and it was a huge, gigantic depression in the ground. I would say about 18 inches or so deep, and probably about 15 to 17 feet in diameter. And what looked on each side of it seemed to be a kind of like a blind, like a tree knocked over, and something had been maybe laying either in the depression and near this kind of like tree blind. And then I realized just on the other side of the depression, there were two game trails that seemed to converge right behind this gigantic depression. And I thought, oh, this is such a strange place, and it's so odd and out of place here in Florida. You don't usually see things like this. And so I thought, I'm just going to go in it and check it out. And my son was with me that day, and I actually had him kind of get down in it, and we were looking at it and trying to kind of figure out how large it was. And we were just inspecting it and trying to figure it all out. And my daughter-in-law was still on the trail, in the middle of the trail behind us. And all of a sudden, from the other side of the trail, this huge stick comes flying out of nowhere. Matt and I heard it come sailing through the air, and it just went right in front of her face and landed about a foot away from her. And we were like, what the heck was that? So we came out of that depression and back onto the trail. And now we're looking at the other side of the trail, and we're trying to figure out where this huge stick came from. And we're hearing some kind of movement, but we couldn't quite figure out where it was coming from. And then my daughter-in-law was to my right, my son was on my left. I'm looking just dead straight. And all of a sudden, I'd say about 40, 50 feet, all the way in the back behind these huge scrub like area and sable palms and cabbage palms, so thick. But all the way in the back, right in between these two palms, I just see from here up, gray skin, auburn hair. It did not look like an ape. It didn't look like an animal. The only thing that made me think this isn't human is because of the color of the skin. And it was very, very soft, ashy gray. It didn't have a conical head. It didn't have tiny little ears. And it just looked completely human to me. It didn't look like Patty. And that's kind of our gold standard, I think, sometimes. And I wasn't seeing that. I wasn't looking at Patty. It definitely wasn't 10 feet tall. I would say between 7 and 8 feet. The build appeared, to be proportionate with its head, it kind of in a way had a basketball player type body. It wasn't massive. And it was like, I see it. We locked eyes. And then, just like a periscope, just went straight down into the bush. And I'm thinking, where did it go? I'm desperately trying to search and hear and listen. And we heard movement to my left, but we never saw it. And we weren't sure where it went. It was way too thick. We couldn't go chasing after it. And honestly, I didn't want to chase after it. And I felt like it was a moment for me, because no one saw it but me. And I know that sometimes Sasquatch encounters, Bigfoot encounters, skunk ape encounters, whatever you want to call them, forest people, a lot of these encounters are very sometimes traumatic and violent, but mine wasn't. It was more spiritual. It was actually calm, and it was beautiful. It was actually a very beautiful moment. And I wasn't afraid. I just wanted more. And about 3 months later, I was kind of going through some photos that my daughter-in-law took that day. And lo and behold, there was my Sasquatch. Just as I had described. Same body type, same hair color, the same skin color. And I still don't share it. I keep it for myself. Because it was for me. It was just for me. And that's my story.
Wow. There's usually a question I kind of start with everybody who comes on here, but I probably know your answer because you were there with your family, your son, and your daughter-in-law. So I'm sure there was no drinking involved and all that kind of stuff, correct? Because you're more like a picnic. I asked everybody that because I know people.
Of course.
You think, well, they might have been on something and all that. So I always get that part cleared away. So there was no alcohol, no drugs away. So the place you went to, now this is different because you went to a place with your family. Now the place you went to, was this a known place by you? Like you've been there before, so you know this place.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, it's a very, it's several trails that kind of converge. It's sort of in a way kind of shaped like a circle. And you can kind of go, there's, I think, 4 different trails, but they all converge towards the back of the property. And then, but there's a lot of scrubland and marsh and, depending on what trail you choose. Because it is in the middle of, Big Cypress Swamp. So,
And I know you said, we're going to get to the part where you said it became spiritual for you. But at the same time, it's got to be scary for you because it's not one thing you're there by yourself. You're a mother. You want to protect your family, your son, your daughter-in-law. I mean, I'm sure there must have been like a protection mode that came on when you first, you saw signs of a noise, a stick thrown.
Well, yeah. I mean, when we heard the stick, we heard it sail through the air. That's how hard it was thrown. Matt and I were probably about 20 feet, 25 feet off the trail, and we could hear it come sailing across the trail and land in front of her. And so my first reaction was kind of like, whoa, what the heck is going on? I thought maybe a person did it. And then we realized, because she's standing there and she's like, oh my gosh, and I look down and I see the stick. And the stick was probably, couple of feet. It was a couple of feet long, and it was pretty big. And I'm thinking that could have knocked her out, But the interesting thing was, I didn't have. It was like, yes, the instinct is there to kind of be like, okay, what's going on? Let's see what this is. Let's investigate, because that's just kind of my nature. But when I locked eyes, and with this individual, because to me, that's what it was. It was not scary, and it wasn't traumatic. It was beautiful.
Now, for the people who kind of knows my channel, who's been here, knows Matt's been on my channel before, and he had an encounter. But there's a lot of people who maybe are new. They're from other communities. Mm-hmm. We all know Matt had an encounter himself. Well, may I ask, whose encounter came first? Was it yours or his?
His, actually. His,
so when you walk down, so the reason I'm bringing that up is when you went down there, it wasn't like brand new for you because you knew about Bigfoot through Matt because of his encounter.
Correct.
So you it's kind of like a one-up type of deal, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes, I didn't have that. What am I looking at here? Kind of moment. I didn't have that because I knew, the awareness was there. I was totally, as soon as I seen it, I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what it was looking.
And what I love about these interviews is what I'm learning is when we talked about when I had my encounter with the group, we were young kids, but the difference was we were taught by our parents, family that, this is Bigfoot country. Everybody talked about Bigfoot like it was normal. I told the story all the time that I thought Bigfoot was just as real as Santa Claus because there was no internet, and I didn't know that it was considered folklore until I went to school and they said, Bigfoot's not real. What do you mean he's not real? You know what I mean? So, right. And when we saw Bigfoot, a lot of the young people got out of the car, actually ran after it because they didn't know to be scared of it. Because we always taught that you respect their land, they're going to respect you. Yeah. Now, I did an interview that's coming out this Saturday where the person's never had a family, never talked about Bigfoot ever. So when he went in the woods, he didn't know, he was scared out of his wits because there was never a discussion about Bigfoot. So there wasn't even like an image what it's supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And you, because of Matt, I mean, I don't know if you guys talked about Bigfoot even before Matt's encounter. Actually, did you guys actually talk about Bigfoot before Matt's encounter, or was that like the first time that got you both into the world of Bigfoot?
Well, down here in South Florida, it was kind of something that I had a nighttime sighting, a very brief nighttime sighting back in 1986. But it was night. It was dark. I couldn't see a lot of detail. I couldn't, So it was before my children were born. So, their dad and I, we kind of brought them up, and we would always say to them, we were always, fishing and camping and all of those things. And we would always say to them, like, make sure you stay when the, sun goes down, make sure you stay here around the camp because the skunk ape's going to get you if you don't, if you wander off. So make sure. So it was kind of something a little playful that we did with them. So, but I mean, yeah, we always allowed the kids to talk about, things that, paranormal.
Well, believe it or not, it helps.
Yeah.
It really does, because when you saw it and you said you locked eyes and you felt a spiritual, so does that make you believe that the Bigfoot, I mean, Florida calls a lot of the Bigfoot skunk ape, they're the same family.
Yeah.
But do you feel that the Bigfoot themselves has, I don't want to say connection, but you know how, like you said, some people have that medium connection, medium power, whatever they can connect. Do you feel that Bigfoots have that magically with you? I don't know. I know it's hard to ask.
I know. Well, it's a little difficult to answer because, I don't know. I all I know is that my whole life, even the nighttime encounter that I had, because it was so dark and I couldn't see detail, it still had the body type or shape like Patty, right? So for me, when I saw what I saw that day, it didn't have any of those attributes that would have been scary. It wasn't big, black, hairy, muscles, and just, it wasn't built that way. So I don't know if maybe if it was a juvenile and maybe it was young and that's why it was still kind of on the shorter side. The hair wasn't long. It was fairly short. It was just shaped very different. It didn't have that conical head everybody, describes. It looked just like mine, round, regular ears, just normal. The only difference is that it had this ashy kind of gray skin. That's the only difference.
Now, because
it wasn't something for me to be afraid of. I never got afraid at all. Not for 1 second.
See, that's what I'm wondering now. Because you have that, and you knew he was there, or she, or he, young, old, we don't know for a fact, that it wasn't there to hurt you. Now, when you go into the woods, do you just go in there with your more heads up, like you're not worried about anything? You had a connection and you kind of saw one. There's no scariness at all with you?
Oh, no, I'm still leery, and I'm still, because you never know. I view them as a people, and every person is different. Every person has a different personality, and every person has a different way about them. And I don't know why that particular encounter was very spiritual for me, but that doesn't mean I believe that every single encounter is going to be the same and have that same experience. I don't know. You never know. It depends on where you are and what you're doing and who you're with and what their temperament is. So I definitely don't go in there all cocky thinking that every encounter that I'm going to have going forward is going to be just like that one.
We said the same thing when we were chasing young, stupid kids. What if one accidentally shot one of their hunting rifles? Maybe not at it, change him from like, I don't want to hurt you guys, but now I heard this, I'm going to defend.
Right.
Because you just don't know. Or what if, like you said, what if we met a Bigfoot that was grouchy that day? I mean, you don't know. I'm sure there's some grouchy ones, or you
Yeah.
might have found one that was curious about studying the land. Like I said, if it's a young one, they're especially curious
Right.
and all that.
I think so, for sure.
You know, and I said this in the beginning in my intro that I admire you for coming out and telling your story, because we need more women to come out and tell their stories too. You know, it's just not men. You know, women and men both have these stories. Now, I don't know, maybe more men are going out in the woods, or. But the thing is, first of all, you don't know, who's telling the truth or not. Too, I know that's we know more men exaggerate stories on average for a woman. But do you encourage on your channel? Do you encourage like people, like tell the women, come out with your story, tell us, because your voice is just as important as his.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I have a lot of female, guests on my show. I've had Robin McRae. I've had Angelique Benham. I've had Morgan Knudsen. I've had several women. Maddie Bachochin. Her encounter was unbelievable. And some of these women are just, we're all, we're just as curious as men.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We're just as curious, and we want to research as well. But I do think that women need to be just a little more on the cautious side about researching alone. Matt and I have talked a lot about that, because I would love to just go out by myself. But, I think as females, especially in your, you are going into an area. First of all, I don't think anybody should hike ever alone, because it's very dangerous.
I was about to say that. You always go as two.
Yeah. You could roll an ankle and you're in big trouble. So it's a very dangerous thing, just from injury, just from an injury type of perspective. But as far as, I do think that, and I hope this doesn't come off in a bad way, but I do think that women need to be a little bit more on the cautious side, because we don't know what their intentions are towards females. And you hear out of tons and tons of encounters where Sasquatch is coming around the house because the husband is working and she's home alone, and maybe he's, away for a week at a time due to their job. And the Sasquatches are coming in closer and closer because the it's a female, and maybe a female and children, and they're by themselves and they're unprotected. We don't know exactly what their intentions are. So it could be dangerous.
It is. The fact is, and I know men DNA are usually, they're bigger, stronger. I mean, there's some are, and I think these Bigfoots know that, this is an easier target than if he was here. He's going to put up more of a fight than you. I mean, that's just...
It's a good possibility.
It's a fact, and we don't know.
Because we don't know, right? We don't really know anything. We don't have anything for fact. So... And I'm, like I said, I'm so glad you're coming out with your story. And I mean, you came out with your story, but if people on my channel have never heard it, this is their opportunity to get to hear it. And then also, now they know that I'm going to go to NonnaBoss's channel. I'm going to check out all these interviews of these other women who have these encounters. And if I can, a lot of females.
You know what I mean? If I contribute some of that, and that just, all it does is encourages everybody to come out. I got a story too. I'm going to say it. And if it's more of a comfort zone for them to tell their story on your channel, we all win.
Yes, we do. Because awareness really, really, really is something that we do still need to push that narrative about. People if you're going to get out in the woods, be aware of what can be out there. There's a lot of other things that are out there in the woods other than just deer and bear and things. So everybody needs to be aware of what's around their area, for sure.
And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give my final thoughts, and I'll talk to you behind the scenes once I'm done. I'll give my final thoughts on this whole thing, and I want to thank you for coming to this channel. And like I said, people, her link to her channel is going to be in the description. Sub it, go to it, because she has a lot of great interviewers, a lot of great people on her channel telling their stories. And more stories you can hear from different people. And listen, if you guys ever go out in the mountains yourselves, some of these stories might, I don't know, make a difference for you. Make a difference of safety. I mean, you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's all we can hope for. So I'll see you in a second, and I'll give my final thoughts. It's so awesome to not just hear her story, that it's a little different. You know, my last interview of the Bigfoot, that if you haven't seen, it was more of a scarier type of a story. In this one, she had a spiritual moment with the Bigfoot, and it's kind of like gives you hope in some ways that if you believe that they exist, fantastic. If you don't believe that they exist, well, you never know if you might go off. I hate to say this. A lot of people don't believe until it happens to them. And so I always say, you know what, you should still hear these stories, because when you're on your own, you never know, something might come up. She's a very special person, and we need more people like herself. I'm telling these stories, and you heard her yourself. She's got other women coming on her channel telling their stories of their encounter. And I think it's just as important to listen to all sorts of people's stories. And like I said, she's just it's hard to say in words. She's such a strong person, because she went on her encounter. She had her son and her sister-in-law there. I mean, I could imagine hearing a stick noise, and you worry about people's safety. But once she locked on, she knew it wasn't there to harm them. That gives you hope. That tells you that these things, there's more to them. They're not animals. I know we think of bears and all that. They're animals. These Bigfoot, skunk ape, whatever you want to call them, they're smarter than us. These things aren't animals. Now, I'm sure if you go in there like a badass saying, you're trying to take over an area, they're going to protect their area. You would. You protect your area from your own house, right? You protect your house. They probably do the same thing. But if you're not there to hurt them, I think they know that. She was there for good attention. She was there like a picnic, take the family out. And I believe they know this. And sometimes I believe they might make a knocking sound and all that, just so you know that they're there. But I think these things are more intelligent than you think they are. These things are not animals. I can't tell you exactly how, where they come from. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is, if you're in a situation like that, always traveling too. Always traveling too, because like she made a good point. What if you hurt your ankle? It'd be nice to have somebody that can, do some medical and help you get out, or go get you help. So always go in with a pair, and always have a camera, always have a book, write it all down. And I just want to say, I want to thank her for coming on my channel, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this interview, and come back every Saturday. There'll be a brand new interview. Don't know what the topics are going to be on each Saturday, but please come back, and please subscribe to NonnaBoss channel. And all I have to say is, I'll see you next time on the Paranormal Highway.